Okay, good evening, boys and girls and children of all ages, yada yada yada. Hi, Cookie Mama. Yeah, I I just started doing this a few weeks ago. Sorry for the long standby wait there. I usually go start that and then go feed my cat and come back and double check to make sure everything's going good, but it took me like 5 minutes just to get my cat inside the house, and then so on and so forth. Anyways, how's everyone doing tonight? I changed a couple of things with my levels, so let me know if let me know if I need to bump the volume up a little bit on the microphone because I am a little ways away from the microphone. Um, I don't know if this thing actually records. Yeah. Okay. 1 second. Filters. Output gain. Oh, that's right. I never changed that output gain. Let's see if that does anything. Go a little bit further. There we go. 6.9 decibel gain. There we go. All right, try that and see what you think. And yeah, no matter what I do, this is probably. I don't know if this. I think this thing only records in mono, so. Um, oh gosh, I just fed you. Okay. Hopefully the cat won't be too noisy. Anyways, yeah. Give me feedback as time goes on to. Let me know if I need to change the volume up or if I change the volume down or if it still just doesn't sound quite right. Directionally, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do much because the microphone, to keep it to where I can actually get my hands in the frame and also keep it out of the actual camera frame, it's like right here. So there's no, like, I can move it a little bit closer, but then you're going to be blocking half the camera. So. Yeah, don't make us make new rules. Yep. Warmount had to clear out a closet that has had two people's accumulated high school year stuff in it. Oh, a little bit of late spring cleaning, huh? I haven't got around to actually writing them down yet, but I was going to make a small set of personal rules for my own stream, which don't really have anything to do. Obviously, all of the WBPL stream rules take precedent, but I'll get to that at some point. For the time being, if you have the ability to do so, find a comfy chair or a couch or something like that. Get yourself in a place where you're not jacking up your back or your neck, taking a look at whatever I'm doing on stream. And if you have the chance, grab something that tastes good. Grab a nice drink. Grab a snack or chocolate or something like that. Yeah, don't need new rules if you don't fuck up. Thank you. Also, thank you for being here, Cookie Mama. It's always nice to actually have you paying attention to things for me because sometimes I'll start looking at something really, really close and then I stop paying attention to what's going on the chat. So, yes, you do see many painting supplies. Currently, what I'm going to be painting tonight, at least for part of or most of it, is going to be. Boom! Oh, shit, I put one of the candles out. Oh, well. Flecktarn. It's, for a while, one of my friends has been trying to get me into playing Spectre Ops or something similar. And that's if you haven't heard of it before, that is a wonderful rule set for modern skirmish wargaming that can accommodate anything from pretty much World War One, mostly World War Two, but theoretically World War One up through like near future, with a few adaptations here and there. But most of it focuses around most of it focuses around special operations sort of stuff, or special operations going up against insurgents and similar things. The rules are generic. Like when you're making it, you simply choose the tiers of your different units. So you can have tier 1 operators, or you can have tier 5 guys that are essentially just either conscripts or farmers or militia in a third world country or something like that. Maybe tier 4. Very good comprehensive rule set, but basically it just breaks down to modern forces fighting modern forces. So we were going to try to do something vaguely reminiscent of the Modern Warfare 1, like not quite Cold War, but essentially pseudo Cold War, modern gone hot. So I've got some Bundeswehr, and I also, somewhere I have some PLA Chinese miniatures and some Chinese Spec Ops, and I think he's got some Spetsnaz and just some random operatory looking types that he could use as, yeah, whatever. Anyways, yeah, camouflage on a miniature scale is tricky. We'll see what actually happens. Yeah, it's a really neat game. I like the fact that the system is, because it's generic, you can use it for what you would expect out of it, which is like operator on operator or operator on insurgent. But it also, they make miniatures for it, and have like scenarios and suggested lists for doing like SWAT versus bank robbers, or Federales versus cartels, and so on and so forth. So you can do all kinds of similar things with it, and like I said, it's generic. You could use the rule set to do your World War II era stuff. You can do a Cold War gone hot. Pirate Land Submixon, yeah. Yeah, exactly. That the Warsaw Pact versus NATO is kind of what we were thinking about doing, but moving the tech level and the equipment to the modern day. So let me get the focus put correctly on my camera really quick to actually hold things up so you can see what they are. Whoops. Wrong button. Okay, let me figure something out really quick. Where's that button at? There we go. So focus is going to be about 40 to 45. Zoom is going to be just a little bit in so that you can see the miniatures a little bit better. Apply. Yes, you do hear the calls of a creature. Oh god, yeah, they supply tons of scenarios. They supply tons of... I think they do, actually, now that I say that. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't really looked into it too much. I know that they have released several different scenarios for... several different scenarios for, like, entertaining sort of one-off sort of things for free. Like, for example, you could probably say it's in poor taste, but right around the time of early 2020, they released a zombie apocalypse scenario set. They also, they've got a very clearly knockoff John Wick model, and then they provided a full set of stats for him. So I don't necessarily know that they put tons and tons of like scenarios out. I can't really remember. I haven't played much of the game outside of a couple of little quick things. Yeah, more small unit combat, less big ass battles. Like when you're doing what I'm doing with the Bundeswehr, where they're pseudo commando or just highly elite standard first world infantry. I've got 6 models in a fire team. You can have more than that, obviously, if you're doing something like single tier 2 operator PMC as the leader for a third world militia. You're going to wind up having like 10 or 15 guys potentially. Yeah, force on force. Yeah, I'm sorry about the cat. I'm sitting here petting him right now, so he'll stay quiet. I'm actually going to see if he wants to be let out, because usually if I just let him in and feed him, he'll just go find a spot and lay down, but he won't be quiet. So I'm going to leave him be for a minute, but if he keeps on talking and it gets too irritating for the stream at least, then I will go toss him outside or see if that's what he actually wants. So anyways, yeah, the miniatures that I've got are the... here's the one that I had done some work on before, just to start putting the splotches down. Let's see how the focus is on that. Oh, right. Need to actually move the light over here, and then also need to move the exposure up, because we're not just looking at pretty candles right now. That's a little bit better. So, now let me see. The focus is probably a little bit too close right now. But anyways, the miniatures that I'm using, I think these are from Empress Miniatures. They're just supposed to be modern day German Bundeswehr infantry, specifically with, and forgive me, I'm not a gun guy or like a real heavy modern military sort of guy, but I believe it was called the Gladius system, was the kit that these miniatures are represented, something that never actually got, I don't think it's actually gotten put into like full use by the Bundeswehr, but it was something that they had contracted for a while, which was like, it was supposed to be a whole bunch of like information integration. Like everybody's got these cool little like goggle looking things that goes over one eye that has some measure, I think, of a minor heads up display as well as integrated night vision and whatnot. And then things like, I remember there was supposed to be a switch on the rifle that allowed you to just push a button with your thumb to activate comms and similar stuff. So it was just a neat looking and kind of pseudo elite looking kit set. So it's just like, okay, I'll just go with that, and I can find ways to make it work within the game. Yeah, it's not the XM80. It's not the XM8. It's the well, the headgear, but also like the overall. I think it was supposed to be like a full. Like there's a bunch of other elements of the equipment that it was all gonna integrate somehow. But yeah, I don't think it's. I think it's the G36 was what each one of these guys is supposed to be armed with, or some sort of like modern variant of it, but then with a whole bunch of extra stuff added onto it. There's a laser sight, there's a telescopic sight, there's there's a red dot sight on top of the telescopic sight or something like that, and then I think there's a flashlight on the side with the thing. So it seemed very operator, and I thought that was kind of funny. So, you still off the top of your head? Yeah, exactly. So let me start getting the actual paints out that I think I used for these. I haven't touched these in ages, so I don't really remember exactly what I was doing with them, but I'm pretty sure I've got an idea. I think I used a couple of German things, or maybe it's just the orange brown. And I also know that I used a German blue, or German gray from Vallejo was the blackish color that I was using, because it's a nice cold blue gray tone. And then I had that lighter green, which was that a stone green, or was that the that might have been just the green gray. That looks close enough, I think, to make it work. I'll see how it comes out. I think it was this orange brown that I was using for the orange splotches. And I think that's majority of what goes into Flecktarn. I sprayed them dark green, so you got that. And then you got the orangish, brownish things. There's supposed to be a dark gray and a lighter gray, and then the very, very light green on top of all of it. So I don't remember what the ratio was, but I frankly don't care. As long as it looks vaguely Flecktarnish, that's what I'm going to be going for. So dark gray and then the light gray. I don't think I ever actually put any light gray on this guy, so I'm going to go with sky gray, because that's a good kind of go-to for a light gray. All right. Let me also bump the... I think when I was looking at the focus, it was a little bit off in favor of being too close to the camera. So I'm going to drop it down a little bit, because I never keep my hands that high up, honestly. So go from 40 down to 30. Apply. All right, let's get some paint on the palette and see what happens. Just got to shake it all first. Come on. That's probably good enough. All right. Out onto the palette. German gray. Boop, blop. Orange brown. Bloop, bloop, blob. Sky gray. Blob that. Yes, I hear you. You gonna go lay down somewhere and find a comfy spot? Okay. Double check, make sure. Nope. Nothing weird happening so far with the chat. Okay. Yeah, take your time, Chief. We'll see when you get back. Or not, depending on whether you do. You do you, boo. Okay. Move those out of the way for the moment. Whoop. Stay there, please. Alright, I am going to leave this guy be for the moment because I want to kind of refresh myself on this by starting fresh. So, my general method when I was doing this before was predominantly just putting splotches of each color around, and then after I got the big splotches put where I wanted them, I went and added in dots in the transition areas. Because doing it all as teeny tiny dots doesn't... If you're trying to construct the bigger splotches with teeny tiny dots, it really doesn't do anything for you. As far as like making it work in the long term. What is in my water? Huh. Well, I don't know if that's gonna... Sorry, got some kind of film floating on top of my water. Oh, I think it's just starting to wear out on the... like the paint that's kind of stuck to the inside is starting to wear down a little. So I'll deal with that next time. I'll just try not to actually I'll try not to lick my brush all that often because I don't want to eat whatever that is. One moment as I take a nightcap. Ah, excellent. All right. So first I'm thinking I'm going to go around with the brown, orange, whatever. Time for the splotches. Let's see if I can get that up correctly and in focus. Adjust that again as well. Yeah, paint water is normally delicious. Okay, but this doesn't look particularly appetizing, I've got to admit. Yeah, focus is probably okay-ish, and then I will knock the exposure back a little bit, but then get the lamp right up on it, I think. Maybe not. Just go there and leave that. Okay, I'll call that good. Eat the paint? Yeah, I don't know. If you want to see someone eat the paint, go check out Miniac's channel. He's got a few videos on it. Okay, orange. I might have needed to shake that up a little bit better. Nice orange splotch there, and then kind of come off. Let me just move the lamp away from it a little bit. That's a little bit better. Okay, we're good there. Let me know in chat if you think that there's something wrong or if I'm out of focus or something like that. Oh, yeah, that's right. If you have any pictures of your mechs that you want to share, especially ones that you've painted on stream with us while we've been live, please send them to art@wbpl76.com, and they will potentially be featured. Not on my show, at least for the time being, just because I am still very, very new to the world of streaming and all of the elements that are that go along with it. I've only barely just achieved some measure of literacy with OBS, so some of the other members of WBPL have done a much, much more thorough job of learning various different forms of software and how to integrate different things into it. So I can't even fucking Photoshop, frankly. Thank you, Cookie Mama. Glad you have my back on this. Just doing splotches. Splotches everywhere. You know what, let me actually Let me just get the rest of this paint off of my brush, essentially. Um, and these are probably quite a bit brighter and a little more saturated than an actual Flecktarn camo scheme may be. But that's okay, because I'm going to wind up doing something like hitting it with Inksomnia Camo Shade or some other similar kind of desaturating green-ish wash once I'm done with this. Probably won't do much of anything to the greens, but it will bring down all of the other colors that are quite a bit warmer than the green, and set them into a much more standardized sort of tone where they kind of it'll pull them all together, essentially. I think if I remember correctly from the pictures I looked at, pretty much every piece of equipment that is cloth-like on the Bundeswehr are, when they're wearing Flecktarn, are Flecktarn, including pouches and webbing and whatnot, and the helmet. Obviously not the skin, obviously not the guns. And I don't know about the boots. If anybody knows about the boots, just let me know. Yeah, AP's military shader also is excellent. I don't know if I have any of that right now, but that's usually the first thing that I would reach for in this situation, but I just don't think I have any. I just know that I have some Inksomnia Camo Shade because I had been using it for the zombies I've been doing recently. What was I just going to do? Oh, right. I'm going to look up something really quick. Go to the Googles, because the internet has never lied to me before. Flecktarn pattern ratio. There we go. So this should be 15% light green, 20% light olive, 35% dark green, 20% brown, and 10% black. Are there 3 different greens plus the olive? I mean, obviously I see the olive, but oh, maybe. Can't tell if that's just the way that my printer came out. Let me check the other one. I frankly don't see it unless one of these colors that's in here is just something I'm. Oh, maybe. So the 10% black is not a black. That's more like an off gray. And then what I'm reading is light gray is maybe what they're reading as light olive or something like that. But either way, I think I've got the right color combination. So. Or at least a good enough one to sell the effect to more or less anybody who just looks at it at a glance. Whoa, don't show the cell phone on stream. Whoops. One second. Okay, grab some water. Yes. Okay. Okay. All right. Going back to it. For narrative, should be a nice. Okay. So this is supposed to be the brown, which I think I said was 20% or something like that. 20% brown. I think, let me just hit these couple of places where it's a little bit thin, and then I'll start adding on the other colors. And then I'll come back to it if I need more of the brown later on. This was a little watery, so, okay, in the frame. I need to put a bullseye or something on my desk so I remember where to put my arms to keep things in the frame. Color jade green is an basic color for CGF. Yeah. You know, there's a lot of Vallejo colors that are just smack on for certain real world military colors. I don't know if that's I don't necessarily think that that is a like fully intentional. That might just be something that because the Vallejo line is just so massive that they're just going to have some that wind up being perfect for it. But okay, and actually, I think that percentage, that ratio, is supposed to be the same for essentially every piece of equipment. So like 20% of the leg should be the orange, 20% of the shirt should be the orange, but also 20% of all of the other stuff, like the backpack and the and each of the pouches and whatnot. And obviously it's not always going to be perfect because it's cut from different sections of cloth, but I should make sure to put, if I'm going to put a color on any of them, I need to put color on all of them. Stop dragging it out of frame. Keep it over. Okay, get a little bit there, get a little bit on, I assume that's a pistol holster. So I'll make that there. Are they wearing gloves? I think they're supposed to be wearing gloves, but I don't think they have the fleck turn pattern on the gloves. So I'm just going to ignore those for now. I'll do them a different color to make them look a little bit more dynamic, even if it's not perfectly real world accurate. A little more on the head. I forgot all about the neck and the chest. So let me just add a little to the neck and a little bit down on the chest. Hardly ever see the chest, but you know what? At least there'll be something there when you do. And then this is a big pouch, so it could use another little splotch. Okay. Those same areas I just hit a second ago that didn't get very much definition. And this one just looks a little weak. Okay. That's probably good for that color. So now let's see. Next percentage up is 20% light olive. So let's see if this lightish green that I got going on here seems to somewhat color match what I'm thinking. Or if I need to add some white to it or something like that to kind of brighten it up. Oh, that sounds about right, I'd say. And now in adding the other colors, I just have to keep in mind that they should be overlapping on occasion. So just like this, I'm taking and intentionally putting it some places directly on, some places entirely off on its lonesome, where I might overlap with another color at some other point. Some I can just get kind of very close to each other, and I'll do the dotting to kind of fade into them. There we go. Get a little more on the brush. Let's see, is that more in view? No, it is. So that's about the best for the zoom. Okay. What did I miss in the chat? Currently paying State of Galaxy Snow Raven Bloodspirit. Nice. I haven't touched him in a while, but I do have some Clan Nova Cat, and I was doing the Alpha Galaxy pattern on them, like most everybody wants to, because it's just so damn cool looking. A little bit of that in there. And then spot this. Yes, I hear you, bud. Mm-hmm. Random spots, somewhat. Just kind of all over the place. Trying to get roughly equal parts of the green, of this light green and the orange. Roughly. Oh, that was close. Okay, that's all right where it is. There. Make sure to hit some of these pouches with it. And the backpack. Yeah, Alpha Galaxy is the most popular NovaCat scheme because it's just... How can you as a painter going in to paint something go, well, I can do some basic colors with a little bit of trim, or I can paint fucking starscapes with galaxies on them. Like, that is the sci-fi mech equivalent of a bitchin' cool flame hot rod paint job. I mean, I know that you can also do exactly the bitchin' cool hot rod paint job on your mechs, but like, as far as Clan Society goes, that is just wicked cool. From both like a player and lore and also just like a painting perspective. When I saw that that was something that was established, I was just like, that, I want to paint that just for fun. Even if I never play them, which I probably will play them. I don't even care that it's Alpha Galaxy. It's just that particular scheme is just mwah. Okay, I'd say we're starting to get a little bit close as far as total volume needed. I think that's starting to look like there's roughly equal parts of the orange and the like light olive green, which is exactly what they're supposed to be. Don't forget the chest. Got to get a little on the chest. Got to get a little on every pouch. So just make sure that I got some here and there. Okay, and then chest area. Just slap a little in there. Get some on the neck and the shoulder strap also. Oh, and forget about the underside of the arms. I'm just gonna put some in there too. Not gonna be too picky about how those ones look. Okay, so that's color number 2. Yeah, the gray to blue blend is nice because even if you don't have an airbrush, you can totally do You can totally dry brush it if you wanted to do that initially, and then put the Starscape on top of that. But like, if you just dry brush it and you go, you can make an easy transition with dry brushing from the blue down to the dark gray. Mm. Okay, let me get a little more water. Well, we better hydrate. Okay. Hydrate before you dihydrate. Correct. Okay. So now we are going with. I'm thinking, what's the next one? Whip that phone out again. Ratio. 20% brown, 35% dark green, 10% black, and then 15% of the light green. So let's do the what they're saying is light green or light olive. I'm assuming is what is usually a light gray. So I'm gonna go with that. Stretch, posture, and stretch. Okay, Jesus Christ. Here, let's see if I can make this 3, 2, 1. Oh, oh. I don't know if that came through on stream, but that was a heck of a it was a heck of a neck pop. Let's try the back too. Oh, oh. There you go. Fuck. Oh. There. Spine alignment complete. Oh, I'm sorry. Was that a little much for you, bud? Yeah, I know. Let me check my microphone. I'm just going to try to swing it in and see how far I can get it in before it starts showing up in frame. Is that still okay? I think that's still okay. It's a little in frame now, so back out, please. There we go. Okay. Cat, you are well fed and you are comfy. You don't have any room to sit up on my lap right now, and you've got plenty of blankets to lay on. Do the thing. Yeah, most of the time, yeah, you're correct. I don't need ibuprofen, I just need a good goddamn back crack once in a while. Yeah, Kitty is getting attention when I have my hands off screen, most of the time, it's usually to pet the cat to make sure he's placated. Ugh. All right, miniature back in frame. Gray. That's what I was gonna do. I'm just gonna take this to a 15% ratio, supposedly. Yes, do 5% less of this miniature must be covered by the light gray compared to every other color on. Fuck off. Where did the pet animal redeem go? That's a good question. I don't know. We should ask Diggs. Diggs, get in here. Tell us where the pet animal redeem went. Somebody called Diggs. We need him. Ooh, that is a very, very light gray. Actually, a little lighter than I think I would like. Yeah, this needs to be colder. Blue gray? Or pale gray blue? That's better, I think. What about deck tan? I'm gonna try both of these and see which one. Ah, hey Diggs. Diggs, people are asking what happened to the pet animal redeem. Oh, god damn it. Oh, I know what I did wrong, I think. That's what he was talking about. Sorry, I thought he was just saying I was mostly coming through left, like louder on left. Where did I find that before? I think it was here. Aha, try that. Did I get it, Diggs? Did I get it? Pet. Come here, bud. Oh, he just laid down, too. 1 second. Hey, come here. Okay. Yeah, sorry, I was understanding or misunderstanding what you guys were saying earlier. And also, just to prove it, holy shit, this cat is dusty. Oh my god. Let's just, whoa, 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 whoa. Yeah, there you go. He gets the good scritches. He is a little bit. 1 second. There you go, bud. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Okay. Yes, very dusty cat. Yeah, I'm so sorry, guys. I misunderstood what you were saying. I thought that at first that you meant like I was just coming through louder from the left side, like it was actually doing something where it was putting me in stereo, and because I had my mic off to the side, it was recording weird or something. It didn't like occur to me that I just made a second version of this mic for the emergencies. So I had never hit the button. It's a weird sort of thing. For some reason, well, I guess it's not that weird, but yeah, for some reason when you put in a new thing in OBS, a new audio source, it defaults to trying to make it stereo. So it will always come through as stereo, but only on the left. Yes, Clan House Cat. Clan House Jaguar. Or House Panther. Oh, this is going to be tough to deal with because now he's actually like all clung up on my shoulder and doesn't want to leave. He's purring so loud. This is what you have done. This is what your 1,000 goop has gotten you. I can give you one hand for the time being until this 1,000 goop has been spent entirely. That's all I can offer. I should get him a little table thing next to me for when I'm doing this and see if I can get him to lay down on it and chill out. Okay, bud. You got your pets? You happier now? Huh? Okay. There you go. Oh, just noticed he's got something on his belly. I don't know if that's a... Not sure exactly what that is. Might be a sticker or something. I'll check that out later on. Okay. Ooh, there you go, bud. Do your thing. Yes, I know, you're very dusty. I'll wash you some other time. Okay. So, pale gray blue and deck tan. Let's see if these look any better when I put them on there. Or if I just need to alter the sky blue a little bit. Or sky gray, I mean. Ooh, a bit more than expected, but that is okay. A surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. I might just have to go with Miskatonic Gray, honestly. It's a little bit warm, though. Alright, let's see how these look. that is pretty much equally as bright. I do need it quite a bit more dingy, so actually that's probably just going to be a case of taking a little bit of that German gray and mixing her in right about there. Yes, bud. Oh, I know. So sad. You only have 2 bowls of food sitting out there waiting for you. Actually, you know what? I think I have a London gray paint that might do this better, so I don't have to mix it all every time. But it's out in the front room. So I'm going to, really quickly, I'll be back in 1 moment. I'm going to go grab that and see if the cat wants to be let outside. This should only take me like 20 seconds. Be back. Okay, sorry about that. How do paint cockpit? Well, yeah, now just the palette is wrong this stream. Yeah, he did not want to be let out. He just wanted, he's just kind of spoiled and he wants wet food, not dry food. He's got plenty of dry food. I put some nutritional stuff in it to make him like it better, but no, that's not good enough for him. Gosh, what did I do with that London Gray? Oh well, it'll turn up sometime. In the meantime, let me just let me do this again. Move some of this pale blue gray or whatever it's called. Get the cat hair out of the paint palette, please. Okay, get that moved over there, and then get a little bit of that. Mix it in, darken it down, and making it more a little bluish. That's getting better. A little more dark. How do paint cockpit? That is a question for the ages. There are many, many different techniques. Most common one I've seen is jeweling, where you just, like if you look up tutorials on how to paint jewels, like in most other wargaming, you were talking about things like large gemstones on jewelry for fantasy stuff, or like for 40k, Eldar spirit stones and whatnot. A lot of people like to paint those as jewels. A lot of people will paint the cockpits in a jeweling style. You can probably find it if you just go on the internet and type in cockpit jeweling. Okay, that's much better. Is that closer? I could still use a little darker, actually. So I'll mix that in. On going. There we go. I think I got it. All right. Now we get to it. That's about what I'm looking for. Okay. So, let me get that mini in view. Oh, right. Let me get that back to where it's supposed to be. The actual frame. Yeah, some mechs it doesn't really work all that great on, purely because of the space and the shape given to you for cockpits. There's people that have done other things. The most common other one that I've seen, I think, is the double color line thing, where someone will do like, they'll paint the majority of the cockpit, they'll paint it purple, and then they will do one pair of sides, like a top and a right side, they'll do red, and then the left and the bottom they'll do blue, just like a line around the outside, kind of, and then a little bit, just go more and more like saturated, like add more and more orange to the red and make it smaller and smaller pieces, and like add icy colors to the blue, make it smaller and smaller pieces, and then eventually you've got like this nice red blue opposing color looking thing. Cockpit covered by a cowl? I guess. That's one of those sort of things where like different sources, it's just depends on who's writing the story will determine how certain things are depicted and what is or isn't standardized and whatnot. So, um, yeah, it's sci-fi. It can theoretically, like the cockpits can be nothing more than blast shielding that has a camera on the inside to show you what's on the outside, and it's all just computer displays on the inside. I think that was something from one of the DC Bruins' animations had an effect kind of like that when the elemental starts digging through the side of the mech and slowly puts out the screens and cracks all the way through them. You have returned for the paints. Well, welcome back, Super Chief. You missed all of the cat action, unfortunately, because my cat would not leave the stream alone. He's now back in here, and he's probably going to start whining at me shortly. Give it time. Okay, same deal as before. Putting these splotches kind of just wherever it seems like it's appropriate to have them. Trying to remember to overlap where I can, but not overlapping all the time. Just getting a fair combination of splotches all over the place. Am I still in view? Mostly. How's things going for the rest of you? What's up with the Gummy and Diggs house? What's up with the Super Chief house now that you're back home? Yeah, usually dark to light because predominantly because let me get that back over a little bit closer. Predominantly because the acrylics, the darks will cover the lights very, very easily. The lights will not cover the darks very easily, and so it's better to kind of work your way up. In this case, I just did this green because I did the dark green first purely because it was the biggest ratio. Like, theoretically, when I'm doing this camouflage pattern, 35% of it should be the dark green, is how much I should have left over. So everything else I can kind of just sketch in and there'll be less of everything else needed. The green can kind of just fill the gaps in everything. Near midnight's just chilling. Well, that's what I'm here for, my friend. Stay in focus. Stay in the frame. Is it focused down there or up here better? Yeah, it's about the same. Let's get the helmet with this gray. A little bit on the chest. Can't forget the chest because I got to make sure I get some in there at least. Well, what do you have planned for the rest of the evening, Super Chief, aside from listening to my dulcet tones? Gonna just grab some wood and chill out for a little bit? I think I'm missing some of this on the arms a little bit. Try to get the underside of the arms because those are being neglected. And this one is supposed to be, the ratio of this is supposed to be 15% of it is supposed to be the lighter color that I'm identifying as the gray, so it should be slightly less than the other colors by 5% or thereabouts. So. Okay, I think I'm going to name that pretty much good for that one. And so now we're on to the color that is identified as a black. Night, Grimos, if you're still here. Have a good rest of your time and a pleasant evening. Okay, going into that German gray. I'll drag a little bit off to the side. German gray being what I'm using for black, because almost no versions of Flecktarn that I've ever seen actually are using a true black. What they describe as black is predominantly seems predominantly to be a very dark blue gray to me. And this is only supposed to be 10%. So, go somewhat sparingly with it. There should be about half as much of this as there is of any of the other colors. Good evening, Orc Slayers. Good evening. Thank you for greeting him, Cookie. Try to focus the legs right now, actually. So, find the places where I've got big old splotches of green still. Try to break those up. Trying to get some of this in meeting areas of more than one color. The legs. Probably good for legs. Now I'm going to go focus on pouches and backpack. I think I've pretty much got those set, honestly. Just going to double check to make sure I didn't forget any of them. Let's take this big orange splotch on this one and break it up with some of that gray black. No. Nobody's asked you anything so far, Orc. You're all good. Welcome back, TK. Good to see you again. No, Orc, this is not Guardsman. This is Bundeswehr. Modern German military. I have no idea if I am pronouncing that right, and if anybody is a native German speaker, I apologize if I butcher your wonderful language. But that was just my best guess as an American looking at the general at the spelling and trying to guess a pronunciation. way it's fun to say. Bundeswehr. Okay, I think... Oh, let me get this pouch. I think that's good on pouches. Let me get a little bit more on the front tunic. Because I think this could use a little darkening in this area. Right here as well. And the butt. Right on the butt area where that pouch is. Try to throw a little bit into the recesses so that's not pure green. Might need to go back with some orange and add that in. Arms. Let me check the arms. Yeah, I think it's doing okay so far. Fleck Tarn is one of those, like, any modern camo pattern is just kind of a pain in the ass to paint most of the time, but Fleck Tarn in particular is one that's... Fleck Tarn in particular is one that is a little bit more time intensive because it's actually made out of hundreds and hundreds of teeny tiny little dots that look kind of like peas. So my general go-to method of trying to make it look vaguely right is putting a bunch of splotches on, just like what I'm doing, and then going to any of the areas where there are edges of them or transition areas and stitching in tons and tons of tiny, tiny, tiny little dots to make the transitions. Let me darken this up again with a little more of that. Make sure it's very more apparent that there's actually a blob there. Yeah, it is pretty interesting. I like the fact with the Fleck Tarn that it's like, it's very eye-catching and recognizable, and also very kind of iconic of both. It's iconic of the Cold War, late Cold War era for the most part, after it got introduced, I think. But also is like, it's very, like, it's recognizable as something even with the modern German military. You see that and you just immediately go, oh, yep, Germans. So... yeah, normally this would be way too meticulous for me to want to bother with, but with the game that it's for, Spectre Ops, is it's a skirmish-based game, and with the eliteness of the troops that I'm using with these Germans, I only have 6 models in an entire force. So I would never do this if I were having to paint like several squads of 10-man squads of guardsmen, but if I'm basically just going to do 2 fire teams, 1 desert and 1 woodland, I've only got to do this on 12 models, and they're small scale models, small-ish scale models, so yeah, not nearly as big an undertaking. Okay. Let me get a little more hydration just for a moment. Ah, yes. Can't tell if I'm missing any spots. Okay, now I think before I start doing all the dots, I'm going to block in the rest of the colors. Double check a couple of things really quick. Yeah. I have, as of yet, still never drank my paint water. And I'm very thankful for that. Like I was saying before, I attribute that primarily to the fact that I actually use these Citadel paint mugs were very cheap at my local gaming store, and they're nice because they've got ribbing in the bottom for you to rub your paintbrush across that agitates the the paint out pretty well, but I don't use like regular mugs, so I never mix it up. Let me check what the weapon is and how it is finished and what color it should be. Is where make weapon. I don't think this is correct. Infantry weapons. Assault rifles, battle rifles, and rifles. Nope, nope. There it is, the Heckler and Koch MG4. And that looks like it gets a standard gunmetal finish. I think. Let me double check that really quick. Sorry, I'm not doing anything right now. I probably should have done this research ahead of time, but you know. Hey, thanks for the follow. Nope, looks like it gets... That's interesting. So they've got many of the guys I'm seeing pictures of with the MG4 are using ones that have... I don't know if this might just be a stupid not gun guy thing. Many of them are just straight gunmetal color, but many of them are also like they have a finish or other, I don't know if it's like plastic parts or something like that, that are more like tan or like an orange brown or a beige-ish kind of color. I'm just going to go with gunmetal. And it looks like quite literally every piece of the gun is gunmetal with the exception of the brass. There is a sight on here though, but even the sights that I'm seeing when I look that up are still the exact same finish. Okay, well that makes that easy. Well, thank you for joining. Yeah, I try to... That's part of the reason why I wanted to do this in the first place. This particular style of stream was just to provide something specifically just a nice, easy, chill stream for people to kind of hang out to. I already made some playlists for it, but I just haven't dialed in exactly how to make it work with OBS. But hopefully by next time I will be able to have some jazz playing in the background. Just something nice and smooth. Or something similar. There we go. Let me grab some of that gunmetal color. But yeah, chill out, grab yourself something. If you got something tasty to enjoy, grab yourself something tasty to enjoy. Nice little... that can be something. That can be a cocktail, that can be a nice cup of milk, chocolate milk, something like that, or hot chocolate. Maybe grab a chocolate bar. That's always nice in the evening times. Okay, let's see. Whoops, I forgot my metal paintbrush just on the other desk. 1 second. Okay, got the paintbrush and paint pot for the metallics. But yeah, regardless of what you do, I hope you enjoy your time spent here. Paint pot number 2. Alright. Drop that gunmetal gray paint, get a little water on that brush. Rattle, 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 rattle. That is way more than I needed, but okay. I'll actually just, if I got that much, I'm just going to use it on all of the minis really quick. Vallejo Metal Color Gunmetal Gray. It's one of my favorite Vallejo paints out of any of their ranges, even out of the metal color range. I love me a black metallic. Yeah, make sure I actually get this in frame. And it makes a very, very nice finish when you apply this and then do a like a dark gray wash over the top of it or an almost black wash and then do a matte coat. It really does nail that look of the semi-finished or the finished metal from particularly from like World War One, World War Two era um, rifles and things like that. But it works equally well if you dull it down really far for modern military, just kind of black gunmetal finishes. I don't know. I think I remember hearing someone call that bluing, but that could be something entirely different that they were talking about. Again, I'm not a gun guy. If you got gun questions or you want to have a gun conversation, Dex and Deputy stream on Mondays. Did I say Dex? Tex and Deputy. Jesus Christ. Oh, can't forget the backside. I'll have to look and see how these laser sights and flashlights are actually colored also. I forgot to check that. I just saw the scope and went, oh, check the scope. But that's the nice thing about acrylic paint. You can always just paint over it again later on. As long as you don't let your paint get too thick and cover up too much detail. But this, the Vallejo model color paint is practically just, it's almost water thin. So it's fine. Sorry, this is kind of an awkward position to try and capture. I got to move my arm really far forward to make sure that that's still in frame. All these little nooks and crannies here. Oh, the bullets are individually modeled. That's nice. What am I missing in stream or in the chat? Yeah, I've had a few friends that have similar problems, Genster. Generally, the recommendations that they've given me and that I've given them also, just for other people as well, is there are other ways out there to paint besides the... it depends on the miniatures that you're doing. It's one of those sort of things. Certain types of miniatures you'll never be able to really get away from if you want to. Doing them in detail with small brushes, small details, whatnot. But depending on if you get into certain games or if you're using certain miniatures, some of them you can get really, really good results with techniques that are just low accuracy or like they don't require quite so much like effort to get the same sort of result. Either doing stuff where you're just using tons of washes or dry brushing or similar things that are easier on your hands and much easier to get large amounts of coverage done quickly. Not necessarily like large amounts of opacity, but just like you can theoretically dry brush paint a much larger miniature in a very short amount of time. Or even things like this, you can somewhat find ways around that through stippling and similar things. But there's ways to do it that don't require this sort of thing. But by the same token, those sorts of things, if you try to do them in any large quantity, I'm sure that they will still hurt your hands. So I don't understand your plight because I don't have the exact same problems that you do. But I hope that at some point, if you do want to get into them, you find a way that makes it comfortable for you. I don't know if there is a way, but I hope there is. I think the darkest style of metal colors. Yeah, steel is basically the one step up from gunmetal gray, and I love steel also. Gunmetal gray is just my go-to for, like I said, for guns, for one. But also for when I want a black metallic, like if I'm doing something where I'm like, oh, I'm going to do Chaos Warriors and I want them to actually be like black metal, then I will reach for the gunmetal gray. But most of the time, when I just want a dark metal color, steel is just kind of perfect. I like that it's got a kind of brown tone to it also. Actually, I don't think I'm going to wait on those and see what the... Because I think the G3 often has a different kind of finish on it. Or G36, I mean. Let me check that really quick. Yeah, so looks like G36s with the Bundeswehr Many of them are gunmetal colored. Many of them are have a kind of like a khaki green color to them. But I feel like that would get um, a little too lost in everything else. So yes, I'm gonna try at least right now to do every one of these um, G36s in gunmetal. Because like I said, I can always paint over it later on. Need a little more than that. There we go. Just gotta keep that moving around. Spend the paint, grab the paint, spend the paint, grab the paint. Don't let it pool and cover up detail. It is water thin, but it will obscure detail if you just blob a bunch into a crevice somewhere. Again, I apologize if I keep taking this off, kind of off frame. I'm not intending to, obviously, but sometimes when I'm trying to get all of these nooks and crannies, it's a little bit difficult to keep it perfectly where I want it to be, and still manage to get my hands into where I need them. But if I do go off screen at some point, or off frame, please do yell at me. Or if I'm doing it consistently and you think I'm not noticing. Also, for anybody who's actively paying attention, if you got a second, and as an audio check, how are my volume levels to you guys? Do I sound vaguely streamery? Or do you need me to go a little more up, a little more down, or something similar? Yeah, you have a good rest of your night, Dr. McWeasel. Sleep well, and we will see you next time. Possibly. I'll hopefully be making this a weekly thing, just not probably on every other, like every week, but like 1 week I'll do Monday, 1 week I'll do Tuesday, and then back to Monday, then back to Tuesday, and so on and so forth. I've got an oddball schedule, so we'll see what happens in the long term, but for the time being, I think that's most likely what I'm going to be doing. Even Marduk, how's things going in your neck of the woods? Yip is indeed painting tonight. Yip is painting most nights. Yip is just painting on stream this night. Not every night, just most. Yeah, we fixed the left channel thing. That was just because I had forgot when I set up the Shure microphone that I needed to make both a regular and an emergency version of it, so that I can have one set to be off and one set to be on at all times for different scenes in OBS. So I made that today, and then I completely forgot to go and tick the box that turns the audio source to broadcasting mono. So it was trying to broadcast stereo, but with only one audio source. So it was coming out mono for everybody in the left ear. So I apologize again for that. That was, I'm sure that must have been just awful to listen to. No, thank you, Marduk. These are just modern German Bundeswehr. Modern German infantry. Again, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Like I said at the start of the stream, I think this is supposed to be an infantry squad using the Gladius system, which was like a kit set that was purported to have had a whole bunch of like communication and intelligence integration with all different points of the kit in various different ways. It was part of their kind of like pseudo next generation, pseudo super soldier sort of thing. Not really super soldier, but just like taking up infantry to a much more elite level as a standardized thing. Again, I don't remember if that was. I remember that was something that they had looked into for quite some time, and at least had prototypes of, but I don't know if it was ever actually developed. Or I mean, it was developed. I don't know if it was ever actually adopted in any capacity. And I could be wrong. If you want to learn more about it, I'm sure you could bug. Like I said, go bug Deputy and Tex on their stream. They will, I am sure, have some much more complete and accurate answers for you about guns and about military equipment than I do. I think this guy firing left-handed is supposed to be the squad sergeant, because his weapon has the little receiver thing on the left side of it, which I think was supposed to be squad leaders are given some sort of extra broadcasting and receiving equipment that they just put on the rifles. I think they also had a little eyepiece thing too that they, aside from the heads up or the goggle thing that all of the infantry had, the squad leaders I think were supposed to have been issued with like a thing that they could literally like hold up to their eye, like a little, almost looked like a little kaleidoscope sort of thing, but it was supposed to be some sort of tactical information thing. I think like it would theoretically hold or show maps or communications by text and things like that. Not sure. Never really looked too deeply into it. I only ever looked into it insofar as figuring out what exactly it meant when I was looking at buying miniatures. Almost got it. Nooks and crannies, nooks and crannies. So many of them all over the place. I use them in games, or will be, hopefully sometime soon. It is specifically the game that I am preparing these for is called Spectre Ops or Spectre Operations. I think that the company is literally just called Spectre Miniatures, and you can see it. It's their own proprietary system. I like it quite a lot. Conceptually, it is a universal skirmish war game system that can be used to represent battles from anything from like World War One ish, mostly World War Two, but World War One ish on up through near future, and it's predominantly force on force. Like the system allows you to do operator on operator or operator versus insurgents are the main ones that get advertised, and most of what the miniatures are that they produce. But it's also a system that, like I was saying earlier, you can do battles that are like SWAT versus bank robbers, federales or sheriffs versus cartels, and various different things like that. They came out with a John Wick miniature and provided a John Wick scenario and rule set. They made a zombie survival scenario also just for funsies. So, neat little system. The miniatures themselves, I think these are from Empress Miniatures. Could be wrong, though. It's been a couple of years since I bought them. Just haven't gotten around to painting them in quite a while. Yeah, that when you actually look into the rules, that is one thing that's interesting. Is for people who are into airsoft or gun guys, it's kind of a treat because you can go into there and like rules wise, you can specifically stat out like the weapons you have in your own home or the airsoft guns you have in your own home and so on and so forth. So um, my buddies that are gun guys or airsoft guys love just sitting there going like, I'm gonna design this. This is like uh, my dream home defense or my dream like range gun, so on and so forth. And so they just have fun sitting down and going, yeah, I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna get the PEX sight. I'm gonna get the laser. I'm gonna get the this and that, and all of the standardized things that you could think of as far as equipment and attachments and whatnot are accounted for, and for the most part, they do a good job of avoiding doing this one gives plus to hit, and this one gives plus to hit, and this one gives plus to hit, just at all times. It all has different uses in different scenarios. So you can have a gun like with the. I remember that came up with the when I was statting out the Bundeswehr guys, trying to make an appropriate list for them, where it's like I took basically the battle rifle. I think of the G36 is what the stat line sat with, or something similar. It might have just been a standard assault rifle, but then like added on two different, like a telescopic sight and then a red dot sight and then a PEC and then a flashlight and a couple of other things here and there to represent the other elements of their gear. And it's like I had something like 8 different equipment upgrades on every individual trooper as a standard thing, and all of it either synergized or did different jobs. None of it was overlapping in just giving me like a +8 to hit on a fucking 6-sided die. So, very well thought out, I think. Okay, what is. Okay, let me see what their missile launcher thing actually is and how it's colorized. There we go. Nope, skip the machine guns, skip the sniper rifles, grenades and grenade launchers. There we go. Anti-tank weapon, rocket propelled grenade. It's literally just called a. What is this actually called, though? Oh, there we go. Look at the wrong list. Panzerfaust 3. Yep, that's mostly. That looks like it's actually painted gray, though. So, we'll see. Tea lights. I do have one oil lamp, but it's a little bit too big um, to put here. I am looking at getting several smaller oil lamps because I do actually like having oil lamps, and I like. I've been doing some yard work out in the out in the yard and cleaning up a lot of the plants that we have out in there, and some of that is like trimming back significant portions of a lavender plant and similar things. So I've got a lot of like flower and plant trimmings that I could infuse lavender into lamp oil of some sort and wind up with something that both burns clean and smells very nice as it's burning. So most examples when I'm looking at the Panzerfaust 3 are, I think that at least from the factory, it's usually painted gray. Not seeing much wear like there's a metal underneath, but frankly, I think if I just do the same sort of thing, it'll fit in just right. There's usually a completely different, like the explosive part on the head is a little bit different. Like it's actually got words painted on it and whatnot, and it's usually kind of a glossy black. So I'm going to just do everything on these again with the gunmetal gray. Um, and later on, I will be adding washes and a couple of other things to deaden them down so they don't look like shiny metal. They'll look more. Um, they'll look a lot less brilliant and reflective. Yeah, this one's a little bent. That's kind of funny. Guess I didn't bother. I guess I didn't take much time putting these guys together. Getting the underside. Sorry, I know this is gonna block the view on the camera, but I gotta get the deep underbelly parts of this to make sure I'm not missing something. Okay. Doing good, doing good. All right. This is perfect. I'm just starting to run out of gunmetal gray on my palette, so shouldn't need any more, but at least I didn't waste any. Sorry, tilting up again in the wrong way. Gotta get it all. Gotta get every little bit. Okay. Oh, still gotta get the inside of the part where he's holding it by hand. Nothing new in chat. Okay. That's a little bit. Okay. I think that's good enough for the metallic for the time being. Time check to see how we're doing. 10:14. All right. That is. You know what? While I've got this out, let me also check the hit gear. Because the headgear might be metallics as well. Let's see. Gladius, that's what I was thinking. Bundeswehr. But not Bunnieswear, Bundeswehr. Brain work, come on. Aha, okay. It looks like most of their optics are a black or black metal color. I can't tell if that is plastic or not. I assume that's not plastic. Anybody here ever do anything with optics like night vision goggles and whatnot? Are they normally metal with like a painted finish on them, or are they metal with just like a metal finish on them, or some sort of fiberglass or rubber? All right. So, yeah, in that case, I think for now I will actually add just another drop of that. Where did I put that gunmetal? There it is. All right. Just, I think one more drop will probably do me. I can always get more. So, there we go. Whew, don't burn your fingers on the tea lights, you idiot. Fun fact for you, while candles are hot, have a good night at work. Enjoy your time, hopefully resting. If I find at some point later on that this is a completely different wrong color, I'll just go back and adapt it correctly. But for now, I just want some measure of color differentiation. Back in the frame, come on. Color differentiation so that when I'm looking at it, I'm not just looking at a whole bunch of parts that are dark green when they're not going to be dark green long term. Helps you kind of decide what and where you want to do for the rest of it. Okay, there's one. Oh, gotta get the little top parts. Itty bitty little tip parts. There we go. Going for number 3. Okay. Sorry for all the silence. I still haven't. Still need to finish up the work with the playlist that I was making on Epidemic Sound, so I can at least put something on in the background for these times when I'm just focused on something and not too actively chatty. When I got off work today, I was just absolutely knackered, so I almost fell asleep for an hour or two before the stream, but decided against it. Managed to catch a little bit of a second wind, but still not 100% there. Thankfully, I don't have to be 100% there to just put some simple paint on some little toy soldiers. So, even if I'm quiet, as long as things stay chill, I guess that's all that really matters. Oh, I forgot I still haven't put the headless guy's head back on yet. We'll do that momentarily. Okay. Yeah, while I'm at this, let me glue the headless guy's head back on again. That's quite a lot. Here. I'm going to use this to kind of pull some of that out. Just don't need that much super glue in there. Yeah, just that's probably good. Head on shoulders. Okay. And now the waiting begins. Just gotta hold it until that glue grabs. But I think if I let him go right now, his head's gonna pop right back off. Boy, what an engaging, enjoyable stream. Oh, there we go. Okay, now he gets set off to the side for the time being. Now that I've done that, I think it is time to return to this one dude. I am gonna just do his gloves and his boots. I just had a picture up actually. Let me check that picture just to make sure. Yeah, it looks like the gloves are just the kind of standard look, kind of like work gloves. Sometimes they're black, sometimes they're gray, sometimes they're khaki or green, with some black straps in the back of them. Might be Velcro or not Velcro, like padding or something. So, what about the boots? Boots also look typically gray or khaki. So, yep, let's just do those in the. I think I'm gonna do. I'll do the gloves separate from the boots. So the boots I'm just gonna do on the dark color, kind of like the black gray. In this case, the German gray. And then I'll just make a point to black wash those later on to add some definition and to darken them down. A little bit further forward. There we go. Boot number 1. And now boot number 2. Need a little more paint than that. I gotta make sure I hit the whole boot. Okay. And then the gloves, to kind of make them pop a little bit, I'm going to do some of that lighter green. It's a bit thick there. That's better. Get under the light. There we go. Out of the focus, I mean. Was I crafted for your games? Yes, I do occasionally. I've done a couple of different scratch build sort of things for terrain for various different games. Biggest thing I've done recently was I made a board. I got the idea from a YouTuber called Marco Frazzoni. He's on YouTube under his YouTube channel is also called like NJM, as in not just Mecha. He did a Warcry table, which is what I did also a Warcry table in the same style, where he took a picture frame, like a large picture frame, a 2 foot by 3 foot ish picture frame, and he removed the backing. I just built mine on top of the backing, but he removed the backing and replaced it with a sheet of steel so that he could magnetize all of his terrain and be able to hang it up on the wall with the terrain coming off of it. I might do that at some point, at least by putting a sheet of steel behind the backing thing that I made. But I just made a I mostly just wanted to make a thing where I've got a board table sort of thing that I could take off that I could have on the wall like a picture frame and take it off whenever I wanted to play a game, and then put it back up there for storage. So I made like a blasted hellscape sort of thing with Chaos Star and some liquid chrome and so on and so forth. But other random things I've made is just I haven't gotten too far on it, but I was making some foam core based like Stalingrad style city ruins for eventually hoping to use to play city fight style kill team things, where I was trying to make like a board that was 2 foot by 3 foot that was just one single building, like you were fighting inside the building as your board with 3 or 4 different levels and a whole bunch of different areas where the walls are blasted out and everything so that you can get from one area to the next, gantries and wooden planks and whatnot. So that's a very large scale project, so I haven't really made a ton of progress on it because it's just, even when I'm actively working on it, it's slow going. So but yeah, there's tons and tons of stuff to do on the hobby. It's one of those sort of things where it's like, for the most part, you are almost guaranteed, if you pick any one person, to find some element of the hobby that really clicks with them, whether that's building or building miniatures, building and painting terrain, creating scenarios is also another one that I think is kind of an unsung, wonderful element of the game. Creating custom scenarios and things like that, and then of course just the playing of it, the actual strategy and so on. Even if people don't really like the hobby aspect of it, many of them really, really enjoy the game aspect of it. All right. I think I will actually get his face also, at least a little bit. Just so I have some basic color differentiation between everything else that's on there. So, how do I want to go about this? Let's do let me do a very high coverage ivory color. I'll try some Citadel Wraithbone and see if this will get it. Actually, no, I'll get the Corax White right there. So let me do that instead. Gotta take some Corax White, and if I can get this mixed up, I'll use that to coat his face. Yeah, have a good night, Super Chief. Glad you could join us, even if it was only for a short while. Yeah, the magnets in the base of minis and the magnet sheet or a steel sheet or something similar, some sort of ferrous material, is a very, very good storage technique. I use an altered version of that with, I got these IKEA letter tray things. I think they're called the Kavissel, but they, if I just reach over here really quick, each one of the boxes, these little letter tray boxes, that's essentially a cube, comes with 4 of these trays in them. And this one takes up the space of 2 trays because I've got big stuff in here, so I removed the tray above it and just let it be as it is. I don't know if you can actually see anything for what it is, but underneath of the cork, this metal material is a material that magnets will stick to. So if you put magnets in your bases, even through the cork, they will somewhat hold themselves up. So they'll hold themselves to the letter tray that I use for transporting them around and everything. So very useful. A little bit expensive compared to some other options. I want to say these things are like $25 a piece, or like 30-ish or something like that. Um, yeah, welcome back, Tim the Grim. But yeah, that's not a bad idea to do it. The main thing is just making sure that you secure the magnets on the bottom of the miniatures properly, because I have had times before where I've gone and magnetized like 150 miniatures just by super gluing them in there, and then the magnets just pull themselves off the base, off the super glue, because they want to stick to the metal stuff that you put them on more than they want to stick to the super glue. And I'm not talking about no, you don't have to drill the bases to place the magnets, but like what I'm talking about is like I was just taking bases and just like taking it, flipping it upside down. You can actually see here on this one where there previously was a magnet in there, because you can see that little circular round of super glue. But when I talked to a couple of friends, what I found is most of the people that I talk to or that I know are they usually will use something like milliput or another two-part epoxy, and they'll shove a whole bunch of it into the base and then smash the magnet into that, so it's like it's held in place by something that then cures into a pseudo resin sort of thing. I don't know really how to describe it, but that seems to work better for them. I don't know if that's just a case of it could also just be that the super glue that I use is particularly poor for this purpose. Maybe if I used some other like thicker gel super glue, it might be better, but I don't know. Just make the base taller for me. Yeah. Drill base plates magnets. Nope, 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 nope. Okay. Right. Back to what I was doing with this. Gonna see how this goes. I'm gonna lay a little bit of this Corax white out onto. Ooh, baby, that needs a mix more than what I can give it right now. Well, I'll get that some other time, I guess. In the meantime, let me just get. I'll just take a little bit of this Primacryl Schmincke Titanium White. Oh, come on. Mixing up the Wraithbone, and I will put a little dab of this down. Just a little dab will do ya. And then a little bit of the Wraithbone down into that and mix them all up. Many fingertips are lost that day. Yeah, I can imagine so. Dark times indeed. Put the ivory and the white and mix them both up. Do a little bit more white. That's a little better. Takes a second to get that white to mix in sometimes. Okay, check if we got a message from work. Get a little bit of water to hydrate, because I haven't done that in a little bit. Ugh. Okay. So now I got that. We're going to do a little bit of face basin. Oh, God. My nose is burning just thinking of that. Jesus, that's awful. Citric acid. Fuck. Okay. Clear your head. Stop thinking about the citric acid. Just, there's a mini here. Just paint it. Ooh, boy, this is... Don't like target shooting like this, but it's got to be done. There's that strap. I'm trying to avoid putting this flesh tone onto the strap that this guy has around his head that holds the helmet on. Or there's several of them, I mean. This is probably going to require several coats. Because putting a warm color over green is always a pain. Thankfully, I'm not going to try to do anything too fancy with their faces. I'm going to rely on some washes to take care of that business for me. Washes or contrast paints or something. Come on, try not to get that skin tone on the gun. Oh, there's a nose there too, isn't there? Yep. Nope, there's some on the arm. I'll just paint over it if I get some on the arm. Not a big deal. Probably should have just done this first in most cases. Honestly, when I see stuff like this, I get so excited about things like the camouflage or the armor or whatnot, I often forget, oh yeah, they have faces. They never did anything cool at chemistry classes. Well, yeah, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Let's see, there's some texture up in there. So actually, I think that those, I see that now. Those are glasses, like glasses frames. I'll have to put up in there later on. But at least for now, I can try to get, just trying to make this even, trying and failing. Don't worry, I'll get there. Just takes a couple coats. Okay. That nose is still giving me trouble. Okay, I'm getting there. I'm getting to pretty full coverage. I don't know what I'm going to do for those glasses. Might just make them silver. May just make you want to play Battlefield 4. Yeah, I know. Yeah, hey, I guess if it triggers any sort of reaction like that, then I'm doing good. or at least doing halfway decent. If it's recognizable, that's half the battle. Okay, now where do I go from there? I can do a contrast, or I can just do the washes. I don't know that the washes would give me enough tinting at the moment, so I'm going to try a contrast. Ooh, shit. That's right, I forgot to put that there. There's a candle. Don't stick your hand over candles, people. Gilliman Flesh or Dark Oath? I think it was Gilliman is what I was wanting. Put that back in there. Give that Gilliman a good old shake. That greedy man. Nope. And let's see what this looks like when I put it on there. I'll go for a little bit of the glaze first so I can see what the color's going to be like. That'll probably be okay. It's pretty pink, which is, I guess, fine for dramatic. So let's just wick a little off. Put that all around the neck. Gotta blend in that neck. Just a bit more onto the face. Maybe more than that. We'll see. Well, that's not bad. At least as a base coat. I'll just have to make it a point to go in and do some highlights later on, because that is a very, very ruddy red pink, and there's a lot of places where this mini had kind of uneven peaks and valleys. So there's a lot of places where it kind of makes them look a little splotchy. It's more pinkish than I actually wanted. So that can be fixed easily with some highlights. Painting my journeys from Middle-earth minis, all 32 of them. I played the game once, now everybody has to wait while I finish it someday. Yeah, I know that feeling. I've got the Cursed City box is something that I've been slowly working my way through in exactly the same way that I figured that I would. Oh, you know, you'll just paint it up real quick, nice, easy, and then a couple weeks I'll have my friends and I play it, and, you know, a year and a half later. Still working on them minis. Let's get some cleanup here. This can go over here. Yeah, I'll have to remember that for next time. I'll try a different thing on top of that color for the flesh and see if I can get a nicer result than that. Still, like I said, not bad for a base coat. Let me just cover up the accidentally splotched a little skid tone onto the gun. So there we go. Oh, this is my 1, not my 0. That's okay. Okay. So that's at least base coated now, for the most part. Now I'm going to go on to doing All those dots that I was talking about. Here's the fun part. Swap to my size 1. Get a little water in there. And now the part that makes everyone not want to paint Flecktarn on anything. Get a little bit of paint on the brush. Bring up that mini. And you start making dots. So many dots everywhere. Starting with the orange just because that's kind of the most punchy and I like it quite a lot. Let's see if you can see that on the backpack. General thing with Flecktarn is that the dots are often much more frequent the closer they are to the originating color. So it's important to make kind of like a cloud of dots around the initial blob and then a couple of just like floaters essentially just a ways off. It's hard to kind of sell this effect though, especially with this paint that's now drying out quite a lot. Let me get a little bit more fresh. You know what? Let me also try. Didn't I have a toothpick over here somewhere? At some point. I thought I did. Maybe I was thinking of something else though. That wouldn't be too bad an idea. Well, I do have matches. Let me try that really quick. Yeah, no, not gonna bother with it. Brush works fine. Just got to get some more hydrated paint. Give it a shake. There we go. Okay. Let's get these dots. A little better, yeah. I'm going to actually kind of limit myself to like realism with this. I'm just going to put a handful of dots into every color around it. And not try to do the whole... Not trying to do too much with it. Just enough to kind of give you that effect of like, oh yeah, I see things floating off from it a little bit. A couple of like small splotches can kind of get the same effect as having the larger sections of dots. Probably far enough over there. Let me get a few over here. Yeah, if I really tried to go for a realistic thing, it would fuck up. I don't know that it really destroys brushes. Not nearly as much as dry brushing does. The main thing is it's just a pain in the ass because you're constantly... It's constantly drying out as you're doing it. So you have to keep on going back in for more and more and more over time. But like it's drying on your brush also, so just like this, it's like I've only got a couple of seconds before this is going to be pretty much almost useless. And have to get more paint on that brush. Just gonna focus on all the pouches for the time being. Really gotta kind of pay attention to where I have and haven't worked already so I don't miss patches and have to just go back and do it later on. Top there. Top here. Okay, that pouch is done there, so let me do this pouch. And part of this effect will also be sold by the fact that I'm going to be doing, like every color that I move this into is going to wind up having, it's going to walk its own colors back into the orange. So none of this is going to be singular or single colored quite like this. Once I actually get it all finished. Any advice to preserve the brush's point? Well, the easiest, simplest one is, let me move this. Put it in here. Yeah. If you don't have any already, this is something that's relatively easy to get a hold of. It is called the Master's Brush Cleaner and Preserver. It's essentially it's a conditioner, more or less, for the brushes. Kind of like they make, I think, brush conditioners. This might be more like a shampoo, but it's just like a little bar of soap thing on the inside, like a solid conditioner, because your brushes are hair. They're hair. If they're not synthetic, natural brushes are the hair of something or other. So like Raphael 8404, Klinsky Sable, it's weasel hair essentially. So preserving them takes the same sort of care that preserving real hair does. This, essentially, all you do is you get a little bit of clean water on the brush, or quite a lot of clean water potentially, and you just swirl it around on the inside of the soap material, and then you pull it out and let it sit for a little while. Not super long, but the longer you let it sit, the more it will kind of soak into the bristles, and it will condition the bristles, but it'll also help break down some of the paint that's got on the inside of them, depending on the type of paint it is. And so once you let it sit for a while, usually I'll let it go for like 5 to 10 minutes minimum. I've heard some people saying that they let it go for overnight. I don't think that's going to ruin the brushes at all, as far as I'm aware, so you can try that if you want to. And then after that, you just really well rinse off the brushes to clean all of that, all the conditioner out of it. Then once that's done, you get it wet one more time and you roll it into a point, and whatever point you leave it at is the point that it will sort of naturally try to stick itself to. So I do that. I try to do that every time that I paint as part of my cleanup process. I don't always remember to, so sometimes I will do it, like I'll go for 2 or 3 painting sessions and remember to do it, but that's the number one thing that I do. There are a lot of other things that you can do that theoretically also help to a lesser extent than that. Like, for example, the easiest one, obviously, most people know this, don't get paint into the ferrule, which is the area where the brush meets the shoulder. So if you get paint into the ferrule, it will dry in there and be near impossible to get back out with a couple of swirls, and it will create like splay in your brush. Like, it'll make it poof out like a squirrel tail, because particles of the paint will get all the way down to the bottom, and then they're taking the hairs that are normally straight like this and forcing them to be pushed apart at the base where they would all normally bunch up. And so then that makes it to where, in the point where it's supposed to go out and then into the tip makes it so that everything at the bottom expands outward. So you wind up with a brush that's a lot more, like I said, more squirrel tailish. Aside from that, there's some other random little things here and there that you can do theoretically, like storing your brushes using something that will hold them so that the tip is down like this. So the bottom of it high, the tip of it low. That way, any water that's in it and any paint particles that may be in the water will drip down and out as opposed to dripping up into the ferrule. There are a lot of other products out there, but I am not well versed in any of them. That's the only product that I have for my brushes. Outside of like for my oil brushes, I've also got an oil cleaner and restorer. But for this, for acrylics, that's the only product I've ever used. Not saying it's the only product that you need to use. There are probably other ones out there that I should be using. I've just never bothered with them. But this is these Raphael 8404s are the brushes that have been my daily drivers essentially for 3 or 4 years now. And I have absolutely no indication of any tip degradation or anything like that. So I think they're still doing totally fine. Also, I don't know if you are using synthetic or natural brushes. I have yet to find a synthetic brush that I personally have tried that doesn't eventually over time start doing the hook tip thing, where it's like the tip starts to just curve on its own no matter what I try to do or how much brush restorer or conditioner I use. So, yeah, take that as you will. There are many videos out there that I would probably say will be more informative that you could potentially watch on YouTube if you just look up, paintbrush care or paintbrush care for acrylics or miniature paintbrush care. You'll find all kinds of different people talking about it and describing their own different ways of taking care of their paintbrushes. I think the first ones that I saw that gave me most of the info that I have now was Miniac did one, I think, called "How to Treat Your Brushes Like the Princesses They Are," and then I'm fairly certain Vince Venturella had one also. So that would be my two recommendations of people to check out on YouTube that I'm fairly certain have some pretty comprehensive brush care tutorials, and just following those would probably get you exactly what you need. So I'm going to continue on. We are dotting everything. Dotting them I's, crossing them T's. There we go. Okay. One more pouch on the inside here. It's just getting some teeny tiny dots wherever the orange is already. And then I think that is it as far as applying the orange on the pouches. Do it a little more over here. Like one there. Come on. Okay. I will do the helmet next. Oh, that's a little more than I expected. Let me just wick a little bit of that off. See if this will give me some dots. Yeah. This is going to be just a mess up here kind of dots because I've got a bunch of different colors all right next to each other. But I think it'll be chaotic in an appropriate manner once I get it all pretty much finished. How's that in angle? That's all fine still. Yeah, chaotic in a good way, hopefully, where it'll look appropriate to what Flecktarn is supposed to look like. Just a bunch of dots everywhere. Yeah, no worries, man. I'm not an expert by any means. I've done a lot of miniature painting over the last few years, but that doesn't qualify for me for any. Uh, like I said, I'm not a professional, so take anything that I say or recommend with a grain of salt. Um, I can only speak from my own experiences, but I like to try and at least point people into the right direction to make new discoveries and learn new information on their own. So, if I can be the catalyst for you learning something new, then I feel I'm doing my job well. I'm here to paint, I'm here to chill, and I'm here to chat. So, as long as I can provide some sort of positive experience, I'm happy. Alright, I think that's okay on the helmet for now. So now let me focus on the arms. Actually, get a little water, I'll hydrate. Yeah, paint inside the ferrule. Maybe. That's totally possible. It also is one of those sort of things where, are you saying that it's opening up like when it's just sitting there dry, or are you saying that it's opening up like as soon as you start painting with it, it starts splaying out and splaying out across? Because like um, even these Raphael brushes that I have, when I let them dry, often they will they'll do the poofy squirrel brush thing. Oh yeah, I know the kind of thing you're talking about. So yeah, I have a couple of brushes that will do that. I try to fight that by when I go into my paint, I'll go into the paint, and then as I drag my brush out of it, I will twist it. So it's like I'm twisting it as much as I can into a roll point. Um, but that still doesn't solve the problem. It's starting to do that. Yeah, it's possible that it's starting to do that because of the ferrule thing. Could be something else too. And I'm not really all that well versed on, um, brush physics as far as the science behind what and why paintbrushes do behavior wise when they dry like that. But don't work over time. It's not the best quality brush either. I tend to invest in a better one too. Possibly. Yeah, it that is one of the things I do think is, even from a, like, when you first are starting, first couple of months, first couple of miniatures in painting, or even if you're not doing miniatures, if you're doing canvas painting or something similar, it's not a bad idea just to start with synthetics. But once you've gotten the basic hang of basic brush control, and you know not to get paint up into the ferrule, and you know the basics of how to not thrash your brushes, I do think that is, it's generally beneficial for people to experience what it's like to have nicer brushes. Um, Not necessarily like the really expensive, like $40 ones, but like spend $15 on a brush, spend $20 on a brush, and see how it compares to the ones that are essentially pennies that come in the synthetic multi packs and whatnot. Um, because I used to hate painting, frankly. Um, I treated it more like as a chore than anything, and I over time came to realize that I just got set up with some really shitty paints and some really shitty brushes. Like the first set that one of my friends got for me was Army Painter paints, and I was fighting those paints the whole time. The first brushes I got were So Games Workshop's older line of brushes, and I was fighting the brushes the whole time, but I didn't know that at the beginning. So as I started getting better with the basics of painting, eventually at some point I just on a whim went, you know what? I see a couple of people using these Raphael 8404 brushes. I'm curious what they're like. So I went and bought one, and it was, and I had tried a handful of other nicer ones before that, like my friends had, like some Rosemary and Co. or some Windsor and Newton Series 7 ones. I didn't like quite the way that like they didn't have enough snap for me. They would, like, when you would brush them and the bristles would move one direction, they would stay like splayed and fanned out in that direction. But when I finally tried one of these Raphael 8404s, it was like a sign from God that, and I finally, like, it just opened up painting to me in a wonderful way, and it got me to the point in using it. It was so much easier to use in many different ways that it kind of got me over the hurdle to the point now where it's like, now I can pretty much pick up any paintbrush that I have lying around and do fine with it. But I almost always grab these for most of my projects at some point or another for something, just whatever is needed. Whenever I need something that I feel a little more comfortable with, even if it's not necessarily a matter of needing like a perfect point or something similar. So it works out in that regard. So yeah, I would recommend, if you're thinking about it, definitely don't hesitate if you have the expendable income. Uh, give something a shot. Just go find something on recommendation. Those are usually the ones that you will hear people. The big names you'll hear people talk about are these Raphael brand 8404s. Well, there goes one of my candles. Sputtering out because it's getting a little bit late. Raphael 8404s. Those are my personal preferred ones, as you can tell. But I know many people that use Windsor and Newton Series 7. I think those are watercolor brushes. Um, Rosemary and Co. also make another set as well that I think is Kolinsky Sable or Red Sable or something similar. Um, Broken Toad is another one that's very popular. I have a couple of their sets of um, both their Fugazi brushes, which are their synthetic line, and also their natural hair line. I use their natural hairs for oil painting. They're pretty all right. And then outside of that, for other like nicer brushes, I don't really know. I've heard very good things about Army Painter's brushes, like better things about their brushes than about their paints. So if I were going to go buy some new brushes at some point soon, I would be willing to give those a go. But like I said, these are not. Don't consider these official endorsements or like a full board. This is what you need to get. This is just the things that these are the names that I have most commonly heard talked about in miniature painting circles, as far as like these are my daily drivers and my personal preferred brushes. So once you start looking into them and you recognize what they look like, you'll start recognizing, like when you watch videos of miniature painters on YouTube paint, or you see pictures of or videos of some of the like competition miniature painters painting, you'll start recognizing the paintbrushes that they use, because you can recognize the handles. So you'll see those same brands crop up kind of just everywhere. Continuing along with these arms. It is a funny feeling to essentially be spending the same amount of time on the dots for one color that I did on the splotches for all of the colors. But hey, that's part of the reason why I'm here, is just to do something that's nice and easy and chill to calm down for the evening before I actually wind down to go to bed. Looks like that's blasted a little bit by the light. I'm going to take that away just a bit to see if that helps with the stream. Okay, that's probably good enough for the arms, at least for now, as far as the orange is concerned. So now I will go on to his torso and the tunic that he's got on. Not much on there, I don't think. not going to see much because of the angle on this, and I apologize for that. Okay. There's a little bit on his back. There's his butt. And Brazil is already 0312. Well, in that case, you have a good rest of your evening, man. Sleep well if you can, get some good rest, and then come back refreshed to whatever the next stream is that I happen to be doing. Probably going to be the next one. I think will be on Monday, I do believe. Next Monday, I think. So, and if you don't catch me, maybe you catch some of the other WBPL dudes. Yeah, no worries. Like I said, I enjoy making recommendations and just chit chatting about various different things. I hope you can get some use out of everything I've said. And you have a good night yourself, man. Dots and dots and dots. No worries. Oh, there's another one right there. Oh, nice. Thank you for gifting that subscription, Night Owl. Okay, that's probably good for the torso for that color. Are you late tired? The bear's getting sleepy, everybody. And frankly, I can't blame him. What time are we at, anyways? 11:16 my time. When am I supposed to finish this stream, anyways? Let me take a look at the schedule. I know that we don't, or at least I'm fairly certain we don't have anybody else up after me for a couple of hours at least, but I'd like to double check just to make sure I'm not stepping on anybody's toes. Whatever I want. Okay. I was slated to go until 2:30 a.m. Eastern time, so that would be 15 minutes from now. So I'll just keep on going for a little bit. Might call it at some point soon, might not. We'll see what happens. I'm doing okay for the time being. I haven't been drinking any alcohol this time around because I've been trying to deal with stomach acid issues. So avoiding a handful of basic things like coffee, alcohol, hot sauces, and acidic things, citrus, so on and so forth. It's not been fun. I used to be taking omeprazole, so I dropped that, and because I know it's not supposed to be something you really take long term. So now I'm having to just deal with the stomach acid and the other myriad problems that crop up with it, but it'll get better over time, I think, and I'm going to go see like primary care about it sometime soon, see if I can't get them to check me out a little bit more thoroughly. Anyways, because of that, I am not quite as drowsy as I would have been in other streams. Get all them dots all over the knee pad. A couple little splotches here and there. A little more paint. Yeah, exactly. No fun allowed side stomach. Yep. That is pretty much exactly how it is. I can't even have sugar right now. Not by anybody's order or anything. That's just like, that's something that I've noticed causes acid problems. So, ditching it for the time being. So many dots. The dots, Mason. What do they mean? Still going. I'll call that light good for the time being. Go on to number 2. Whoops, that's a little bit larger than I expected. But you know what? Happy accidents. I think this might work if I speed it up a little bit. Give an 84 gift subs. Man, thank you so much, Night Owl. Now, if only I knew what subscriptions actually meant in Twitch. I don't know if I've given this impression yet or not, but I do want to stress, as far as the streaming thing goes, I really have no idea what I'm doing. I've got my camera settings okay, I think, and I got my audio settings okay, and they just gave me the keys to the stream. I really don't know what else I'm doing or how most of the stuff actually works with the subscriptions and emotes and all that sort of stuff. I trust that you guys do, and that's part of your experience. So I appreciate any interaction that comes up, even if I don't really know exactly what it's supposed to indicate. Yeah, those little holsters are probably good. That looks okay there. Okay. I've now officially finished 1 color's worth of dots. Oh, kill me now. Please don't. That's a bad joke. Sorry, Twitch. Bad joke. Yeah. I think that's looking good so far. Does that look like Fleck Darn to you? Kind of looks like Fleck Darn to me. Okay. Do another time check. 11:22. Alright, I think I will call that alright, at least on the painting side for the time being. Ah. So, I'll just take a few minutes to kind of decompress a little bit. Maybe debrief. So, well, I got a few minutes, and I got a handful of you guys there. If anybody's listening and actually cares to give me some feedback, what do you think about what I've been doing so far? Is there anything I can improve? Anything you got suggestion-wise as far as things that I can either do on the stream, things that I can or should add in on the back end, like through OBS or whatever? Furiously hunting my few pieces of Flectron. Aside from the sound level hiccups that I had at the beginning, once I fixed it, how's the audio been? How's the video been? Are there any other quirks or anything like that you think I can improve on in the future, so on and so forth? If you got any ideas like that, just let me know. It'll take a few minutes to just be here. I got one candle left that hasn't burned out tonight. Let's see how long that lasts. Stick around for another couple of minutes at least. But not a bad night's progress on that, though. Oh, hey, look at that. There's a magnet on the bottom. This one hasn't lost its magnet yet. Oh, well. I've been pretty happy with the amount of progress I've been making on various different projects as I've been doing this, even when they're just one-night sort of things. Audio could use a bump as in volume. If so, that's totally doable. I mean, I don't know if I'm supposed to turn the gain up to make that happen, but that's what I've been doing, is just turning the gain up. But these are the other two things that I've done on stream the last couple of nights that I've done it. One on each night, essentially. Zombie Butcher and a zombie cat lady. Still need to go back and redo the Butcher's pants texture. But, yeah. Volume-wise, okay. Let me actually do that right now and see what you think. Let's see. Sure, 58 filters. Gain. I had it set for 69. Nice. Let me bump that up to... Let's try 10-ish. Is that a little bit better now? Is that too loud? Still a little too quiet? Let me know. I can always keep going. But let's see here. Okay, perfect. I remember next time I think if I can get someone to show me how to do it ahead of time, maybe I'll run a poll and see what people actually want me to, if anybody has any preference on what I wind up painting or not. Most everybody seems to be content with just watching along as I just kind of screw my way through whatever miniature I choose to pick up that evening. I figured that the Bundeswehr modern military sort of thing would be a little on brand for most of the BPL's audience, but you never know. Sometimes people might want to see something different, and I've got plenty of different options. So, anyways, I think that'll probably about do it for me for the evening. Well, normally I'd go a little bit longer, but I haven't had much in the way of caffeine. So even though I'm not really sedated right now like I normally would be if I had a little bit of the booze, I am still thinking that I probably should go to bed not too long. So until next time, I hope you guys all have a wonderful evening and a wonderful week. I should be back on, I think, next Monday around the same time, and I'll figure out what I'm going to paint either by that time, or I'll figure out how to run a poll so you guys can choose for me. But until then, best of luck, and I will see you then.